I'm Sean Shepard with Clean Skies News, and I'm reporting from the Georgia World Congress Center. I'm here with Dr. Jay Gulledge. He's a senior scientist and program manager at the Pew Center on Global Climate Change. Doctor, thank you for taking time to talk with us.
It's my pleasure.
Regarding what you were saying in the panel discussion, you say scientists must do a better job of assessing risk. What do you mean by that?
Well, scientists in general are not trained to think about risk. They think about testing hypotheses. They ask scientific questions. It's about understanding natural systems. It's not about evaluating the risk that changes in those systems might pose to human populations. So my point is simply that when we're thinking about climate change, we need some of the scientists to be focusing on the next step, which is, given what we understand about the physical climate system, what are the risks of changes in that system for society? And that's not something that has been a strong focus of the assessment process, at least for the physical scientists.
Well, what would you say that scientists are doing right? What are they doing wrong? What would you like to see more of?
Well, in general, scientists are doing very well on what they're trained to do, which is ask the physical science questions. It's not that they're doing something wrong so much, it's just that we have a system with holes in it when we want to translate scientific information into impacts on society. We don't have, at least for climate, because this is a new problem and it's very complex, we really don't have a strong community of people who really understand both the physical science and the social dimensions. And so it's very difficult to put those two together, but that's what we're going to have to do in order to manage the problem.
But you said that people seem to believe that they live in resilient societies. In other words, that nothing's going to happen. Things will stay the same. Why do you think that's the case, and how do you educate people on changing that thought process?
Well, if you think about it, we are more resilient in some ways in our modern society. At least in rich societies, not very many of us die from freezing to death. A few do, but it's a very small proportion of our population. So we are more resilient in that sense, and that's our personal experience tells us that. But there are ways that we're less resilient. If there were 2 meters of sea level rise, we have a lot of coastal infrastructure that would be destroyed by that. We wouldn't be able to protect it if it happened over several decades, for example. And we don't know that that's not going to happen. We also, for example, Atlanta, we're in Atlanta now, and it had a tremendous drought a couple of years ago that lasted a long time, and they just really thought they were going to have to start turning off the faucets. They've had droughts like that before, but the last one was in the 1950s, and there were half as many people here, and they just didn't have the demand for water that they have now. So Atlanta is now less resilient to droughts that they used to be resilient to.
We have a Copenhagen Accord, but climate legislation currently being held up in the Senate right now. Question is, how can we move forward with these different cogs in the machine? Some are moving, some are not moving.
Right. Well, I think we can have risk assessment because the Congress or the Department of Defense can tell us do the assessment. The question is more about solutions. Once we know the problem and how to solve it, we've got to get policies in place that incentivize those solutions, and that frankly also penalize for not finding solutions. We don't have those policies in place in the United States, and that is, what you referenced. And without them, in fact, we can't solve the problem. But it's a political will question, and we'll find out hopefully within the next year or two if we can muster that political will.